Welcome to the GCN Tech Clinic, where we aim to answer your bike tech maintenance related questions. Normally it's Alex and I, but Alex is on a it's not secret, mission to Eurobike this week on the hunt for all the latest and greatest and cool new tech. So if you want to see what he finds, then make sure you subscribe to the channel because they'll be posting lots of videos about that. In the meantime, I'm going to crack on here and try and answer as many of your questions as possible within the allotted time. You can submit your questions in the comment section below using the hashtag askgcntech, and that way it makes it easier for us to find them. So first up this week, we have a question from Mr. E331 who says, any tricks or tips for keeping tan wall tyres clean? Well, good old sort of brush and a sort of dish sponge and soapy water is a good way to keep tan sidewall tyres clean. Give them a scrub, loosen the dirt and rinse them off, and then a jet wash on them is always useful. I do have a friend who's periodically taken them off and put them in the washing machine, which, although does make them fantastically clean, would make me a little bit nervous about damaging the integrity of the tyre, especially when you want the bead to be strong enough in a tubeless tyre. So I wouldn't recommend doing that. But I think, yeah, a good bit of elbow grease should get them looking cleaner than they were before. Not optimized. Says, could you do a deeper dive episode into watch reduction and how that applies to amateur riders? Roadies can be obsessive, and I'd like to hear some real talk about grams and watts in the real world for riders who aren't racing. For example, is it worth saving watts or grams if I'm just riding at group ride pace? Further, doesn't fewer watts mean less energy expenditure, which means I have to ride faster and longer to the equivalent amount of exercise? Yeah, so I mean, that's a good way of looking at it. Like, you know, it's like when you go running with a weighted vest on, you know, it means you can almost get more bang for buck. So yeah, maybe don't, if you're limited with the amount of time you have to train, maybe you don't want to put all your fast race kit on and use all your fastest tyres and things like that. Save them for when you really need them in a racing situation. The other thing is that the overall, obviously this is, I don't want to go into all the detail of everything because this is a potentially very big topic, but what people don't realise is that when we often talk about watt savings and we go, oh, at like a pro speed at like, you know, 50k an hour, this saves 10 watts, which means that for an amateur travelling at 30k an hour, it might only save 2 watts. They think, oh, well, it doesn't really matter then. That's a misconception. And the thing that's the most important thing to remember is that while the watt saving is less, the amount of time saved is usually the same because you're out on the course longer travelling at that lower speed. So it's a strange convolution, the way it sort of comes together, but yeah, for slower riders, you're still saving a considerable amount. So it's worth bearing in mind if you do want to actually go as fast as you possibly can. Bat Porio says, hi there, another chain question. On his recent video about waxing, Josh from Silka was talking about quick links and mentioned how they're not supposed to be reused multiple times. And it's the first time in my life I've heard about it. Right. So yeah, they're not supposed to be used indefinitely, but, and it's the manufacturers of chains tend to say you should only use them like a couple of times. And this is basically them just covering themselves off, I guess, for any sort of legal things that could happen if someone damaged themselves using a quick link more than once and the chain snapped and caused an accident. Personally, I have reused quick links several times, and more than what the manufacturers would suggest, and have used them, you know, 4-5 times, and then typically I would replace them, and I buy spare quick links to use with my chains, especially if you're taking them off and re-waxing them and such the like. So yeah, they're not designed to be used indefinitely, but you kind of know if they aren't good anymore because when you use the quick link pliers to put them back on, they'll click into place, and if they've become loose and they don't click, then yeah, it's clearly a dead quick link. But yeah, just I would be careful with it and keep an eye on them. But that's my take on that. Russell Van says, I saw a couple of videos where Ollie mentioned myWindsock and using it for time trials. I signed up and I think it's great for making sure I'm not spending the whole route into a headwind. However, there appears to be so much more to this system. I do not do time trials or cycle competitively, but can Ollie do a deep dive video into the ins and outs of myWindsock? I have the paid for version, but there is a free version that many will find useful. Yeah, I guess this is something that we could do in the future. I think it's a fantastic tool. It really, really is. And, you know, while you may not cycle competitively, if you are, you know, interested in, you know, just trying to do like your longest ever ride, then it can still give you useful information about the course and the conditions and where best to invest your effort. And it can do a thing where it breaks it down and goes where power matters most. And it will tell you that, say, at this moment when you're facing a headwind, that's where you should invest most of your energy, even though it could be on the flat, compared to there's a hillier section later on where you've got a massive tailwind, and that might be a bit where power actually doesn't matter as much. And so that way you can really be more efficient with how you use your energy throughout a long ride. I think it's great. It not only makes you faster, but it's just, you know, helping you allocate your fuel more effectively, I guess. I've got another question from Noptimized here. I don't normally do two questions from the same person, but I wanted to answer this one because, well, you'll see why. I've read and heard about some of the challenges Shimano encounters providing neutral service bikes to racers and trying to accommodate as many riders as possible. Are these bikes exclusively set up left front and right rear brake configurations? I believe they are. There's also a bunch of other things to do with cassette sizes and disc brake rotor sizes and all sorts. We've actually done a video with Shimano on their neutral service. Lloydie caught up with them at the Tour de France where they're providing neutral service. So that's going to be coming out on GCN very soon. So make sure you well, as I said before, subscribe so you don't miss it, because it's really actually quite fascinating. They also are going to tell us in that video about times when they've actually helped riders in the race. And a lot of the time you don't actually see this in the coverage. It's on TV. So that'll be really cool. Next question is from XEO5, who says, hey everyone, question on wax chains. We get loads of questions on wax chains, but I love it. I have 2 new chains in the box waiting to be used. Currently using Silka Wax and the Super Secret Wax Lube to keep the current chains running smoothly. Would it be worth to wax them and swap out the other chains when it's time to, and keep rotating them to save time? Yeah, that is a great thing to do with wax chains. What I typically do is have 2 chains for a bike and then I rotate them. So, I will run the one that's freshly waxed and run that for like sort of 500, 600k. Occasionally, if I'm in a rush, I'll just top it up with some drip on. But, you know, what's nice is then if you've got one that's freshly waxed and ready to go, you just swap that over when it requires it, take the one off and then give that a quick clean and re-wax it. And then that one's ready to go in another 500, 600 kilometers time when the other one's sort of done. So yeah, and if they're used in dry conditions, which thankfully we seem to have in the UK right now, I better not say it too loud, we'll scare it away. Then yeah, they can last even longer than that. I've had wax chains last absolutely ages, you know, getting on for like sort of 800, 900 kilometers. So yeah, that's a good way to do it. Right, last question this week is from PCAT007, who says, hi, when is it time to change tyres? When is it obvious to everyone? You know, is it when I see glimpses of the inner tube coming through the tyre, or are there more subtle signs? God, no. That's definitely is time to change your tyre, but it was time to change your tyre a long time ago if you're seeing the inner tube popping through. If you're seeing any carcass, change your tyre. The useful thing on most tyres is they have wear indicators on them. So these are little holes or little tiny craters that are put into the tyre. When that disappears and you can't see it anymore, that means that the tread has worn down and it's worn down past that level. It's time to change your tyre. That's the easiest answer I can give you. But if your tyre is badly damaged, sometimes even before the treaders are worn away, you might have to replace it. Like if it's got a really bad slash in the carcass or the sidewall, the structural integrity of the tyre might be gone, or if there's damage to the bead, it might be time to change it before then. You can patch tyres though, so even if you get some big holes in them or some punctures, you can, and then if it's a really big hole, the inner tube will sort of hemorrhage through the tyre. You can't use the tyre in that state because it will just puncture all the time. But you can patch them from the inside and repair them a bit. So to do that, you can sort of get patches, tyre boots, Park Tool make them. And they're a useful thing to actually have in your saddle pack so that if you do get a bad slice while you're out on a ride, you can patch your tyre from the inside and get home. So there you go. I hope that answers your question. Sorry if we haven't got round to answering your question this week, but be persistent, keep them coming down in the comment section below, and we'll hopefully get round to it in a future episode. Love you. Bye.